Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your show host, Dr. Lino Martinez, and today I would love to welcome Russ Haddad, also known as AA Winston, has had a full range of life experiences, starting with the death of his father when he was 12 years old. He always had a love for writing, dating back in high school. He turned toward poetry accidentally, dipping his toes in the genre during his high school. Poetry became his form of coping through life's ups and downs, reinvigorating that love during the COVID pandemic. He rediscovered his enjoyment of putting words to paper to express himself and decided to publish his works to share his feelings in hopes others relate. Welcome, Russ, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Great to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Lino, for having me. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on.
I love that I'm a poet and that you're a poet. And the reason why I love this is because there's a different type of connection when two poets connect. I feel that it's a certain type of language that we can understand, even if it's something we've never read or shared before. There's just this certain type of expression that opens up a different avenue of communication. So I'm really appreciative that we get to be in alignment here. And I'd like to know your journey. What brought you to where you are at today?
Sure. It's been kind of a long, strange journey that's taken many twists and turns, as probably everybody goes through in life. Really, back to high school, kind of the beginning of when I started writing poetry. It was like you said, it was in the bio, is that I tripped into it. And I didn't realize the therapeutic part of it.
Yeah.
My father died when I was 12 years old. I'm the youngest of four children, and my mother became a single mother, and she kind of worked and helped us get through high school, college, and into our lives. And in high school, it was just kind of I started writing for the school newspaper, and it was just one of those things where I was a very shy person, and I realized that I had to go out and interview people and talk to people, which was not something I really enjoyed back in the day. I was kind of a very introverted person, and so I wasn't really doing a great job being a staff reporter for the school newspaper. And then Valentine's Day came up, and somebody said, "Hey, maybe we should do a poetry, some sort of Valentine's Day poetry, sort of a thing." And somehow, and I'm not even sure how it even happened, but I was chosen, or I volunteered to do it, thinking that, oh, it's one of those things where I can just fluff it off and all that kind of stuff. But I wrote it, it got published, and got good reaction from it. And then from there I became the school poet, so to speak. And but then I realized that on the side, outside of that, I was writing just on the side, just to again work through failings that I didn't realize I had bottled up from the death of my father. And then it became kind of a thing that in next stages of my life, that I going through college, going into the professional life, getting married, having a family. um I continued to write, and there were periods where I wasn't doing a lot of writing, but then I would get, I guess, re-inspired, or the need and the urge to put my thoughts and feelings on paper kept coming out, but I never put it out there. It was for me. It was just, so I kind of kept it to myself for a long time, and then
Russ, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious here. What types of thoughts did you put on paper? Was it always poetry, or was it literally just thoughts? Like, today I'm feeling, was it like journaling? What do you mean by putting thoughts on
so
paper?
it was kind of a bit of a combination. Majority of it was poetry. I was actually putting it in some sort of a stylistic you know framework. And but a lot of times it was just like a word, or a couple of sentences,
Yeah.
that honestly, that later, when during COVID, when I kind of rediscovered getting into poetry on a more regular basis and consistent basis, that I realized I had saved all that. I had just put them aside, and they're in a box, and I pulled them out, and all those thoughts and everything. It was everything from kind of teenage angst stuff to just the daily life of the grind of life of being a kid, and then growing into college and young adulthood, and kind of all the feelings that go along with that, and relationships, and love relationships, and breaking up relationships, and kind of that idealistic kind of thoughts as well. And then kind of as I grew older, they kind of became a little bit still. I still try to maintain some idealism and hope. But they did naturally. I think people become jaded, with what they're doing, jobs, and
Oh yeah.
other things that go on in life. And for a period of time, life took over where, I uh, was married, got a divorce, went through custody situation. It wasn't a pretty time. So that kind of took over my life. And then I was still writing during that time. So it got a little on the negative side, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But I was going through a real, I just wasn't happy. And there's a lot of things going on that I just didn't, it was hard to see a way out to a certain degree. But by putting it on paper and having that outlet of putting words to paper,
Yeah.
and really creating combinations of words, which is really what fascinates me
Yeah.
the most,
Right.
is, being able to find different ways of putting words together. I've always been fascinated by words themselves and the use of words, but this allowed me to kind of, that creative part of me kind
It's
of
like
came
word
out.
art.
Yes, and it really is. And in a lot of my influence of my poetry really is music. Um, people like Billy Joel and other artists like that, the songwriters, the people who are really good storytellers. They really had a pretty big impact throughout my life and even to today. When I hear good word combination, I just love hearing that.
Yeah.
It's not so much the music, it's the lyrics that always drew
Right.
me to the music, and to those types of artists. And then, through COVID, I just kind of, when I saw that I had this collection of writing and these works, I was like, let's just put it out there. Let's collect it. Let's curate it somehow. Let's put it
Russ, were
out
you
there.
writing all on paper? Or were you also typing everything up or on tablet?
I
How are
was
you? Or little
so in
scraps
the
of
early
paper?
years it was all paper, yeah. And then, but for probably the last, so the growth book spans really basically 40 years and basically three phases of my life up to this point. And so probably the first 20 years I was probably writing on paper more often than not.
Yeah.
But the more and more we got in, because I'm a kid of the 80s. I come from that time period. So computers and word processors and everything were just coming on then.
Yeah.
So, in the 90s and 2000, I started writing more, basically doing everything on computer. But before then, it was all pretty much paper and pen. Um, and even the thoughts that popped out that I was scribbling just on little scraps of paper and everything like that. Now I put a lot on my phone.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
notes section on my phone. So anytime I have a thought, I pull my phone out, and it kind of just flows from there. But that's the thing. It just became a very therapeutic way of doing things, and really the end growth was just a way for me to get it out there, show people that I've had experiences and maybe they can relate to those experiences. And if I've been able to get through some of those times, those bad times,
Yeah.
and but also think that there's hope in this life and there's stuff that still goes on. Um, that if I can do it, other people can do it, and hopefully other people can just take some inspiration from that. And I'm not saying that any of my works are any great epic masterpieces. I just consider myself a regular person who's just gone through experiences in life,
Mm.
just like anybody else. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I think we just need to be able to see that other people have gone through some hard times, but
Yeah.
also some good times, and also being able to pay tribute to people who had really good influences on me in life. So it just seems like it was just a growth really was okay. This is where I am in my life up to this point, but now it becomes a jumping off point that I can kind of wipe the slate clean up to that point, and that's where when I came out with my second book, Pieces of Mind, that was a jumping off point where I kind of cleared it, and then but I learned from all that, and I just kind of can look forward and keep looking forward. I can move forward now. I was able to create that line of separation without those writings over the first 40 years. And now I get, who knows where I go from here.
And so your first book, Growth, is the first 40 years of your life.
Mhm. Well, it spans 40 years. So basically from my teenage years to about, early 50s. Yeah. So it kind of covers that really, I guess, like 15, 16 years old, all the way to I'm 55 now. So and I published last year. So yeah, 50, 54. So close to 40 years. Yeah.
And did
So
you
go
did
ahead.
you
I'm sorry.
find any, okay, or it's a compilation of poems that you had written, or did you go back and reflect on your life and start and write new stuff, or is it all together?
So towards the tail end of it, from COVID, I when I saw I had this whole collection, I kind of realized it did span all that time, and really kind of became stretches of like phases of my life. At the first phase of immaturity, but is what I called it, and it was just kind of being that idealistic, teenage, view of life,
Mhm.
or in early adulthood view of life. Then the kind of second phase is um, maturing, which was having a family, being, getting into a career, professional life, those sorts of things. And the last phase is continued maturing, which is kind of the reflection part. So
Yeah.
COVID really, that's when when I started looking back and see what I've done. I did write a whole bunch more material, and that's kind of where that third phase of my life, kind of came in for growth on that section of the book. But was very much a reflection on where I've been, what I'm doing, and where do I go? How do I move forward? And um, but it's also just it's about the relationships over the
Yeah.
years, good, bad, and different, and how I've handled situations in life. Um, you know, for example, like the divorce. My wife and I, my ex-wife and I, my first wife, neither of us handled that very well. And we got into a battle over the custody of my son, and we could have handled that better.
Mhm.
We were too selfish for each other. We were too, as many people do during divorce. It becomes this fight
Yeah,
between
power
two
struggle.
people. Exactly. And you know what? We put my son in the middle of it, and that wasn't right. And so, but looking back on that and being able to think about that more, I'm hoping I'm handling relationships better now. I'm
Sure.
remarried. Have other relationships with, friends, relatives, whatever. Co-workers, things like that. But really, the whole thing is putting myself in other people's shoes as best as I can, and trying to understand where they're coming from, and not making it all about me all the time. And
Right.
maybe that's the biggest part, is that it so much in life is not about us, me. It's about how you interact with other people, how you treat other people, um, and how do you make their lives better. And I take a lot of enjoyment that if I can help and support other people, it really does make me feel better. And that's really what I do, from work to personal life to uh, really as many interactions. Whenever I interact with somebody, I try to be as good a person as I can be.
I feel that. I definitely feel that. And when you first started writing Growth and putting it together, did you know what your purpose for writing it was, or were you just going with the flow? I got to get this out. I got to get this written. I've got these feelings. I got these emotions. Or did you kind of say, you know what, if I do this, it might help someone else? Did you already have that frame of mind, or did all of this come afterwards?
Initially, when I first putting it together, and really trying to organize it, it really was. I have to admit, it was selfish. It was I wanted to be able to prove that I could do it, and then put it out there. But then as I was organizing, getting deeper into that process,
Mhm.
it did become, geez, maybe somebody else, other people have been through what I've been through.
Right.
Maybe not the same situations per se, but similar things that have gone through in their lives, that maybe they can just see that I've gone through it, and they can maybe learn, or get help
Right. Right.
with that. And just so it did become, initially it was selfish, but then it turned into a little bit more of an altruistic um, endeavor. Um,
Right.
and the response that I've received from it, and just people, some feedback who I have been able to get feedback from, is that it is accomplishing that, that people are getting something out of it, and it just makes me feel really good that um I'm able to do that. I'm able to reach people that way and connect. I think that maybe that's the most important, connecting.
It
I'm
is
connecting through this book.
connecting with humanity. It's really
Yes.
beautiful. It's a really beautiful way to connect. And so now that you have this different altruistic feeling with the book growth, did that kind of change your outlook in the next book that you wrote, Pieces of Mind, as far as like, okay, well, now I know that I'm getting this feeling and that people are getting these responses of this. Now I could be a little more purposeful with this book. And the more purposeful you are, the different I mean, it shows in your writing and even
Oh,
your
yes.
wording and even your organization. So
Right.
are you able to see that difference in both the books?
Oh, absolutely. I think one big thing is just confidence, you know, being able to do that and getting that sort of feedback. But yeah, I feel like the poems in growth were very raw, very, I mean, just very free, free flow sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just, and honestly, I could have done a better job of curating that. Um, as I continuously look at it and I talk to people about it, I could have maybe done a better job with some things on that. But but yes, I the word
What do you mean by that? You
construction.
could have done a better job in curating. What do you mean a better job?
I mean, just because there's almost there's some of the poems are kind of out of order, if that makes sense, from the phases in my life, that I probably could have categorized them better and just grouped them better.
Okay.
Um, and also there's even some words, and this is probably too picky that it's just when I read it, and maybe I'm just too critical of myself, is that I see some words like, oh, I'm not sure if that really fit there, and the punctuation and all this kind of weird. And I don't use a whole heck of a lot of punctuation, um but I just kind of just the sentence structure and just kind of the flow. I just say, oh, maybe I could have done something a little bit differently there. But you're right. I think I've taken the experience of growth and made I do think Peace of Mind is just better, because it is a lot more focused. It's about more topical about what's going on in the world today more than anything else. And a little more edgier too, because I do get into I am critical of kind of the media landscape that we have, the politics, and just our reactions to certain things like 9/11, and how society is just kind of the split that we're in, the polarization that we're in, is really kind of frustrating, because it really feels like we're really not we're really not that different. We have more in common, yet we've allowed these outside influences to really split us.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that's really
Definitely.
concerned me, and it's really been, you ask my wife, and it's just I kind of it really just it frustrates me a lot that we're in the state that we're in the country and in the world, when you think about it. Um, it's just like we've made some choices, but again, I'm still trying to use that. I'm trying to be hopeful as much as I can, because I know there's still better days ahead. I mean, I still have faith in people, where we can find where we have common ground and we can work things out. But we just got to figure out how to get around that. We just got to figure it out better. But a big part of that is just talking to each other. I mean, just today I had conversations with people who politically are just, I know they're opposite from my
Yeah.
failings, but yet we're sitting at a table having lunch and being able to talk through it. And I find that,
Yeah.
you know what, they actually believe in a lot of the things that I want. We just come in from different angles.
Yeah.
But if we talk to each other, maybe there's somewhere we find the middle, you know?
Definitely.
Um, and so I'm encouraged, yet I'm concerned. I gotta be honest. I'm concerned about society today. But I think that I was able to translate, you know, that into the second book better than maybe it. But I needed the experience of going through that first
So
book.
I have a question in regards to your inspiration. So I can feel that from growth, you are self-inspired through your own personal experiences of life. And pieces of mind, you're being inspired by the collective about what's going on with the
Hmm.
world. How do you tune into this inspiration? I know how I tune into my inspiration is by going inward, being silent a little bit, and kind of just feeling the feelings that are flowing through me, and I kind of just let it flow out magnetically onto paper. But what is your process? How do you get into writing about what you're going to specifically write about? Let's talk about your newest book, Pieces of Mind. You're talking about the collective, you're talking about 9/11, you're talking about people suffering. Are you tuning into other people that you're meeting, as the way you just mentioned right now? You're meeting somebody, you're talking about what's going on with the world today. Are you feeling their feelings and then writing that stuff out? Or are you combining your own personal feelings with their feelings? I mean, how does this process unravel for you?
So I really, and that's a great question. So really, a lot of times, I do work with nonprofits, and the Rotary Club here in my community, and even in my job, I go out and I talk to a lot of people, um, who are running businesses and just kind of involved with that in their communities and things like that, and trying to make their communities better. And really, what I think is what I do is I some of the things I find I have in common with them. Other things I'm like, where are you coming from? I don't understand it, but I try to translate what they're telling me, and putting it in the context of kind of what's going on around it. So yes, there's a little bit of personal thought in there and some opinion, um, but a big part of it is just kind of filtering the information and
Yeah,
what people have told me,
right.
and then distilling it into something that really has a message, that really is put out there, in a way that hopefully helps me digest it, but also hopefully a bigger, more massive people,
Uh-huh.
is able to kind of take it in, because I think it's so overwhelming.
It
It
is
really is.
overwhelming. It
Um,
is, and it can be,
yeah,
especially
and we're
for interpreting so much feelings
yeah,
into
so
words.
that's what I'm hoping
You're
that that
translating
that
energy
oh,
onto
big time.
paper, and that can get a little exhausting. And so it, in a good way too, though, because you're
Oh,
also
yeah,
releasing it. You're
yeah,
releasing it.
absolutely, right.
And so if in your book growth, the goal here is sharing your feelings and hope that others will relate, what is your goal with Pieces of Mind? Is it the same?
So it really is. Well, no, I just really to make people think, because I think, to a large part, and this is the kind of the journalist part of me, where I kind of try to see both sides of things.
Mhm.
Um, I spent 4 or 5 years as a newspaper reporter, and talking to people, asking questions, and that's what I'm hoping that I'm prompting with Pieces of Mind is just conversation, because again, I don't think we talk to each other that much, and there's probably some stuff in Pieces of Mind that people just won't appreciate and won't like, which is fine. I mean, I have no problem with that, but I would want people, if they don't like it, that I would love feedback on it. Talk to me about that. What do you mean
Sure.
by that? Um, because it's
Can you
not so
give an
much a knock.
example? Can you give an example on
Um,
something in Pieces of Mind that some people wouldn't be, I guess, up to par with?
so yeah, I do write a poem about the former president. Um,
Okay.
just highly critical, and it's just that
Sure.
because I don't fully understand, and this shows my political side maybe, but I don't fully understand how people have just totally fallen for him when there's
Yeah,
evidence
right,
that
right.
he's not all that,
Hmm.
um which is I mean, honestly, some of the stuff he says makes sense, if but his way of going about doing it, um and honestly, just the whole, the continuous lying and all that kind of stuff, I'm not sure if I understand the whole mystic myth of him. Um, so I'm sure, if when people read that they will not, they would say, because I think I don't use his name, but I think
Sure.
people will be able to tell
Right.
who I'm talking about.
Right.
So that, I mean, that's one area. Um, but there's also, stuff about that I write about, the media and cliche, and how they just kind of amping everything up all the time. I think people would agree with that, because I think that's something that, no matter your political persuasion, your income persuasion, I think a lot of us can agree that the media is not really presenting things in a very balanced way, where you're getting both sides of the story and allowing you, the viewer or the listener or whatever, is not being allowed to really make up their own mind with the information. Which in my mind, that's what the media is supposed to present the sides, and then allow the person who's taking the information in to figure it out, and to
so in
come to their
pieces
own
of mind,
conclusions.
thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
well,
that,
yeah,
Russ. Yeah.
yeah.
So then in pieces of mind, it feels like there could be a lot of controversial, a lot of debate, but it opens up the window of opportunity for discussion, which is what I'm feeling from you, that what you want people to know is that we're missing this type of special connection because of media, multimedia, social media, all kinds of media. That's too many walls are being put up and
There
people are
is.
not authentically connecting. But if you open up the windows of communication by a simple poem, where there's beauty involved in it, it actually connects people to open up their ways of thinking,
Yeah.
and maybe even add some spice into their life, or even change a specific thought or form a different belief because of connection, and maybe even uplift humanity, because what you're trying to do is connect. And when you connect people, you're uplifting people. And
Yes.
so, I mean, ultimately, that's what I feel your goal is here.
You got it. You got it. Because I think, with the media landscape, social media, all the technology and everything like that, we're not. I mean, it's all set up for us to communicate, but are we really communicating? I
Right.
mean, I see more divisiveness than I see
Yeah.
communicating. To me, communicating in life in general
Right.
is so important to building relationships. And it's just that we're just not. I don't know. We're just not doing it, and it's right there in our disposal, but we're just not using it the right way. Maybe I don't know, but yeah,
Do you
I could
think
go
we
for
ever
a
will?
face to
I
face
mean,
conversation.
do you think we ever will? There's an evolution that's been going on now for a while. It feels like, with media getting more diverse, when will humans or humanity come back to one another and say, let's do away with the computers and let's authentically connect face to face?
I that's a really hard question to answer. I think just because we're humans, and humans just, and I think we saw this going through COVID. People just needed interaction. They needed connection. Um, so in that respect, I'm hopeful as we come out of that. I have seen people just wanting to be together more in the same room, and I see that in work. I see that with social aspects of my life, that um, even if it's small groups, they still they still need that 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 tactile, ability to feel, touch, hear, all, rather than just doing it on. And maybe it's a
Right.
generational thing. I don't know that, but even with young people, even with their engagement with certain things these days, um, they seem to be, if it's the right issue or topic or social event, they want to come together too. I remember my son, he was in school in Boston during COVID, and he was for 2.5 years, basically, he was sharing an apartment with roommates, and that's all they could do. They couldn't go to class. They couldn't, he did
Oh,
not have the
yeah.
normal, and many, you know, students during that period didn't have the normal college experience. But I see him coming out of that. I mean, but he's and I feel for the younger generation because they've been through so much in life.
Oh, yeah, they sure have.
Um, but he's finding his way. He's finding his niche. Um, he's doing okay, and he has his group of friends and everything like that. So I think there is yearning, and I think eventually, I don't know if we'll fully come out of it. And I know it's a long answer to your question, but I don't know if we'll fully get reconnected. But I think we'll get connected in our own ways, and we'll just figure it out as we go along. I think that will be. I think there will be a backlash. I think there already is kind of a backlash to a lot of the technology.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so So I'll remain hopeful that we can come out of this, in a certain way that's a more positive.
Russ, I also feel your desire to connect with people.
I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment. I I guess part of the peace of mind, and even I guess to the growth to a certain extent, is giving myself a voice and connecting,
Mm-hmm.
so I can share what I've learned through life. But also, I want to learn from other people. I don't know everything. I can't know everything. I do want to continue to learn. So I think that's getting that return, that reciprocal, sort of input and feedback, in relationship building is, yes, I think that is a desire. I think that's an accurate assessment.
Definitely, reciprocation is a real beautiful thing. It's harmony,
Yes, yes,
and we
and
all
we need
desire
more of that, more and
harmony.
more. Yeah,
And harmony is what brings equilibrium, and that's what brings a sort of balance in our lives, which is what we're constantly trying to juggle and constantly trying to create.
yes, I totally agree. Yeah, and that's why I stay hopeful that, because I think people are they're always going to want that. We're human beings. That's just innate in how we are.
It sure is. Hey Russ, do you have any poetry to share with us from each of your books?
Sure. Let me see what I can find for you. Um,
Excellent. Thank you. I love this.
okay, so let's see. So I'll read you again. I'm not sure if these are, I'm a very highly critical person of myself, but so this one's called the lesson.
Okay.
So I want to ask the questions that no one will answer. I want to command the orders that no one follows. I want to teach what no one wants to learn. I want to say so many words that no one can piece together. I want to speak a special language never heard by anyone. I need to learn so many things, the things no one will ever teach.
I love it.
Um, this is one I just kind of a fun one and it's kind of a
Well,
series of,
actually,
but
before we go to the
yeah,
next one, what was the title of the one you just wrote
that was
read?
called The Lesson.
That one's called The Lesson.
Yeah.
And when you wrote the lesson, do you remember where you were at, what you were thinking, what you were feeling in the middle of it?
So
During?
that was, I think it was probably, if I remember kind of the frame of mind back when I wrote it. And this was going back to early adulthood. Um, I think it was just one of those things where, um, I built up, acquired some knowledge and everything like that, and but I also yearned for knowledge.
Mhm.
Um, so I had questions, and I wanted to find things out, and I was curious about things. So it's probably in that college, my college years, that I wrote that. Um, and just like I not that I wasn't fulfilled or satisfied. It was just that I just wanted to. I knew there was more out there,
Mhm.
and I wanted to find out about more. And maybe that's that part of the little bit of the idealistic part of me back then was um, I wanted to learn from other. I knew there other people had knowledge, and I wanted to learn from them. But I also knew I had something to contribute as well.
What
So
I
between
also
the
feel
two,
from that, what I also feel from that poem, The Lesson, is that I feel a lot of that you weren't being heard at the time.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and I think that yes, the sense of frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, yes, yes, that is so true. And honestly, I have to say, in much of the growth, at least the early growth pieces, that was that I guess there was an undertone of that in many of the writings. I was kind of I've always kind of been a little rambunctious. That I had more to say and more to contribute, and that I wasn't being heard at times. So
Yeah. I can feel that.
I really like that interpretation. But in that, and I'm really thank you for saying that, because
Sure.
that sort of stuff, I love to hear that, that people are interpreting things that way. Um,
That's how
that,
I
that
feel
tells
it.
me that you kind of get me.
I do get you. I do
Yeah.
get you. And when you were done writing the lesson or just any one of your poems, what do you feel when you're done? How do you know that the poem is complete and done?
So it really comes. It's just it, another great question, because it really, when it's almost like I know it, and I know that's hard to explain. It's just that it's just when the thought, when I know I just know I've reached the end of my thought.
Right.
And the word, the
I
uses of the
love
words,
this.
the messaging, and everything like that. And I'm sorry for that answering it that way, but you know what? I just know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, there are some times when you just know it, just because if I write it in a certain style and rhythm, you just know that that it the thought just comes to a natural conclusion. But a lot of times it's just like that, like the lesson. I gone through kind of the list of kind of things that I wanted to do, and then I turned it around that at the end, like, I know there's so much more I need to learn. And almost like, how can I be wanting to do these things when I know I maybe I don't know everything. So so a lot of times I just kind of can feel it, and then I kind of try to put the twist in at the end. But yeah, a lot of times it really is. I wish I had a more.
It's challenging. I guess it'd be a challenging question to ask a painter the same thing, because I'm sure they're like, well, I could have put a little speck of red right there, you
Well,
know, but
and I have a bad habit of continuous editing. So it's just so it's one of those things where I never feel like I'm completely done with anything, but I almost have to force myself sometimes to stop. But I know when I'm writing a poem that when I've gone too far, if that makes any sense either. When
yeah,
I put too many words in there, made it too long, or or put things in there that didn't make any sense. I just I really do wish I had a better answer for that question, but it's just a feeling. It's
it's
just a
a feeling.
sense.
I mean, that's really the best. That is the best answer. It's a feeling. I guess that's how it is for me when I'm done writing, and it's like sometimes I'll finish a sentence. I'm like, I feel I can write one more sentence.
Yeah,
And then it's that last final word, and I could be like, okay, that feels fine. And I don't even have to have a
yeah.
period at the end. It just
No,
feels like an
exactly. Right,
internal
right.
period. It's done. It's set.
And do you feel sometimes when you know you've overwritten,
Yeah. There are
you
times
see
where
it
I've
like, oh,
overwritten and I
that
start crossing things
no.
out. I'm like,
Yes.
no, I didn't need to say all
No, no.
that. Like I
It's like
feel
almost
more
like I
with this.
sometimes I sense that I'm forcing the issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
once you get to that point, you say, oh no, that doesn't work, because I really hope that my stuff comes across as being authentic. So once I start feeling like I'm forcing the writing, that's when I'm like, oh no, that just doesn't fit.
Let's talk more about authentic. It's one of my favorite words right now. When you're writing something, the reason why it's one of my favorite words is because that's what I feel that what people are the missing piece that people are missing in their life, where joy, happiness, peace, and love is finding their authenticity. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in finding your authentic writing and knowing that what you have written is authentic, what does that mean for you, knowing that what you wrote is authentic?
Well, I think it comes down to if it's not something I believe in, I can't put it down
Yeah,
really the right way. And
great.
I'm hoping that because it's unpolished, I mean, I think that's me. I mean, I'm not
Mhm.
the most polished person in the world. So when I write down raw thoughts, it's truly coming from my heart. It's truly coming from me, from the inside of me.
Right.
Um, so that's the also, there's some art and some writing that can be just kind of over the top,
Right.
and really can be, it's hard to understand.
Right.
Um, and so I really kind of want to be on a level where um the regular person, whatever term, I hope you know what I mean by that, that anybody can read, anybody can relate to.
Just everyday
Um,
people.
yeah, not using big long words, or trying to talk above people. I just want to be on that same level as them, because I feel like I am. And I hope that comes through as much as possible. Um, I don't want to talk down to people. I don't believe in talking down to people. And I hope my writing comes across as just being, I'm talking to people and with people, not at people.
I love this. Absolutely. Because if you're talking at people, you're not connecting with them. You're
Right.
actually talking to a wall at that point if you're
Right.
talking at people.
Right.
And so in finding your authenticity, and when it's something that you strongly believe, let's say you're writing something, you put too many sentences in there and you're like, okay, this is too much. When do you know that? I mean, how is that inauthentic?
Well, that's when I start throwing in words and sentences that almost honestly, when I read them, that I know it's a stretch to make the connection from what I was trying to say.
So if you're
When I
trying too hard, it becomes
Yes,
inauthentic.
yes,
Yes.
it really is that is it, because
Right.
and I think people notice that. I really do. People can see through when you're doing it, when you're trying too hard, when you're
Well, I
forcing
think
it.
people who are authentic can see that, but if other people are inauthentic and you're being inauthentic, that's the vibration you're going to be on,
It's a
and the
good point.
inauthentic people
That's a
will
really good point.
relate to your inauthenticity. But if
Yes,
you're being authentic and that's what your goal is, then that's what you're going to attract more of, and ultimately that's what's going to help you grow and expand and connect with more people.
that well said.
So hey, share us a piece from Pieces of Mind.
Sure, sure. So I'll do the if I can find it here. Um the 9/11, if I can find, yes,
Yeah.
call 9/11. The title is 9/11.
Okay.
And here it goes. I didn't lose anybody, but on that day, I believe we all lost something. We chose the wrong path as a result. One could say the architects accomplished their mission. Time has passed. We have created it as a people and as a country. They wanted us to lose faith in our institutions and our people. When we should have stayed, we strayed. As I hear and see the victims' names flash across the television screen, I see a range of ages, a spectrum of nationalities and races, and the breadth of religions. I see the legacy of immigrants. I see the true representation of America. I see us. I hearken to harness the unity we felt, unity we shared, unity we experienced that day in 2001, seemingly momentarily as the weeks passed. When I see the blue ribbons worn by families and dignitaries honoring the memories of those who died, and the unity we possess for a few ephemeral hours each 9/11, I see the opportunity, I see a chance to change the trajectory, a chance to right the wrongs, expose the truths of our past and present so that we may seize a stronger future. Would this not be the best way to honor the victims? Shouldn't that be the legacy of that fateful day? And that's how I end it. It was just the questions.
Just a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And did you feel like any of your questions were answered after writing that poem?
Not yet. Yeah, but I think that's part of the examination.
That
Um,
is part of the examination.
and I think it's more of that poem is a little bit of a reminder that, you know, we have choices in life. Not so much, so yes, specifically to that, when that day happened and kind of where we went as a country and as a society. But even every day we have choices. We every day we can decide which way we want to turn and how we're going to react to each other, and to how we're going to handle situations and circumstances. Um, and I think, we can always change those decisions to a certain degree. Um,
How can we
uh,
change some of these decisions if some people are reactive and not contemplative and not really thinking about how their actions cause reactions and how they're just reacting upon reacting?
well, and to that point, I mean, there's always going to be a segment of population who are just going to keep plowing ahead, tunnel vision, not going to change. But I think, again, a lot of it is just fortitude. Keep pushing, and keep prodding, and keep asking questions, and maybe at some point, you if you can get them to get people to engage, I really do think that there's at least a chance, a hope that they can, if not fully change their minds, at least see a different viewpoint and appreciate that viewpoint.
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of it. I'm not looking to change anybody per se. I'm looking to just make them think a little bit deeper,
Right.
and just maybe have a better understanding of kind of what maybe somebody else is going through, and kind of
Mhm.
what they're doing maybe influences other people, and what's going
Mhm.
on in their lives.
Well, you're not changing anybody per se, and you're not trying to change anybody per se, but your goal is to connect. And if your goal is to connect and your goal is to share love, there is change in that, and it's a
Hmm.
positive change. So you are looking to change people for the better, for the best, and to see connection more as something that that's a dire need for our survival,
Hmm.
and for us to just keep uplifting ourselves and to just keep having that reinforcement.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do my little piece of it, and I know you are, and I just I think collectively if we can all kind of do our little share of it, hopefully
Yeah,
we come out ahead.
we are definitely. We're like the minions working in the in the background, like hoping to just spread these words and open up a different way to think and feel.
The strength in numbers, every
Yeah,
little bit counts.
definitely. I love it. So hey, I have a poem to share with you. I wrote this about maybe 20 minutes before coming on meeting you today. So your writing inspired my life. Your writing inspired me to write about my past as well. When I saw the words immaturity, maturing, and continued maturity, which are the topics of your book Growth, I kind of felt into my past and decided to write something about it. So thank you for inspiring me to get these words on paper.
You're most welcome.
I love it. I love that laugh. Okay, here we go. Through the barbed wires of the past, personal incarceration is no longer a theme. Integrated by nature, explored within, and recognized by self, the anticipation to know more and anticipate inner wisdom has lifted my spirit towards light. And this light lifts me up to see through the darkness and persevere through doubt. This light is alive, and I am breathing. And that's where I ended it. And I have a period.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thank you.
much. That was nice.
Thank you so much for sharing. So, hey, where can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find your books and get a hold of you?
So, I have my website, russhaddad.com. They can find information there. They can purchase the book from Amazon or barnesandnoble.com if they'd like to do that.
And do you have social media? Do you have like
Yes, Facebook.
Instagram or TikTok?
I do have a
Okay.
Facebook. Still working on Instagram, but yeah. So Facebook is the primary. So it's AA Winston is my Facebook page.
Hey, so tell us about AA Winston. Why AA Winston?
Again, it was goes back to kind of my chai roots as a teenager, going back to the high school newspaper thing. So when they needed a poet, I was too shy, and I was like, the typical teenage, kind of self-conscious sort of thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
if I put out a love poem for Valentine's Day and they put my name on, I'll get teased and all that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
stuff. Um, so I don't know, I don't know where it came from. I don't remember my thought process to coming up with the name, but for some reason AA Winston popped in my brain, and it sounded like a poet's name.
It does sound like a poet's
So,
name.
so it has no connection to AA Milne or Winston Churchill or anything like this. I just kind of came out, and I just kind of stuck with it. So when I wrote the book, it just seemed like a natural, um, kind of play the whole thing through, that I use it, for the books. Um, so that's the funny little weird story about AA Winston.
Have you ever Googled AA Winston?
No, I haven't actually. Have you?
No, but as you're saying this, what I thought was, what if that was you in a past life and you were a writer back then? Maybe it's flowing through into this life. I wonder who AA Winston was, if there's anything in history on AA Winston. I'm gonna Google him when we're done with
I
this.
think
I'm
I
gonna
think I
figure
will.
this
That's a
out.
great idea. I hadn't even thought about that. I still, I keep forgetting that I can do that.
Yeah,
that,
Google it.
that anybody can just, go on the computer and Google something, and if you have a question, just you can go find it,
Sure
find the
can.
answer somewhere. But that would be interesting. Can you imagine if that actually was true?
That'd be amazing. It
That would
could
be
be
that would
true.
blow my mind.
You never know. It could be true.
It could be. Oof. Wow.
Yeah, some chills into that, huh? Russ
Yeah.
Haddad, everybody here on A Little Less Fear podcast, aka AA Winston. I love it. You can find his book Growth and his new book that just came out in December last month, I'm sorry, Pieces of Mind on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. He's at russhaddad.com, RussHaddad, and on Facebook as AA.Winston. Thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible love for humanity and wanting to create positive, beautiful change and connection with everybody. I really appreciate your energy and I appreciate connecting with you. And thank you so much for being who you are authentically. I really appreciate it all.
Dr. Lino, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. It's fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
And Happy New Year. I thoroughly
Happy
enjoyed
New
this
Year.
too. Happy New
Yes.
Year to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much.
You take care.
You too.